A pleasingly busy week this week at Amazon Cars. First of all, I drove Gareth's car back from Derbyshire, 4-hour trip on Sunday night, and straight onto the ramps on Monday for a replacement gearbox because first gear synchro was not doing so. It was impossible to engage first gear, even double declutching, whilst the car was on the roll. So we sorted that out. I replaced the rear crank seal at the same time, and we've gone back to felts. I took out the rear crank seal, which is a brand new unit. The gasket was perfectly sealed, so the oil wasn't coming from there. It was definitely coming from the neoprene itself, so I thought the circumferential spring must have popped out from the neoprene. Took the whole unit off. Nope, the circumferential spring was intact and in place, and still we were losing a lot of oil from that neoprene seal. I've put in a felt as originally designed and spotless. So I think I've pretty much given up with neoprenes. They're just too flaky. You may be successful with it, and I'm sure lots of you out there will have replaced one in the last couple of months and will tell me that it's perfect, but I don't trust them anymore, and I'll be using felts from now on. So, new rear crank seal, new gearbox, beautiful. We also had our continuing fueling problem with this car that we've suffered from the last two events, and it turned out it was just a fuel pump. It was a knock-on effect from when we knew that we had problems with fuel delivery on this car, and we changed the fuel tank because we had fuel starvation from the pickup, and we should have clearly replaced the fuel pump at the same time. However, that's done. And then I noticed, I've been very aware on my passenger seat that Gareth's window, driver's window, was making very odd noises and wouldn't drop down all the way. So I decided to go in and sort that out. It turned out that it had been very badly bodged, and in fact the rear lower channel was missing entirely. So actually there was a good chance that the window would have just dropped out into the bottom of the door. So that's all fixed beautifully, and I took the opportunity at the same time to adjust the tie bar that goes from the locking knob down to the latch, because what you were having to do to get into this car was put a bit of side pressure on the push button on the door handle to get it to open. You couldn't just press it straight, and that's simply the adjustment on that tie bar from the door locking knob down to the latch, and that's sorted out. So Gareth's door is just tickety-boo now, and I'll go and do the passenger door, mine. It hasn't displayed any nasty symptoms, but I'm going to go in there and check it, because what I found in the driver's door gives me no confidence that somebody's done anything nicer on the passenger door. So we'll go and do that next week, and that'll be a good chance for a video on replacing the door channels in the Amazon. So that was that, and then we got to grips with the 164. So Steve's 164, and it was complaining of lack of power. The first thing, as often we do, was to put in a decent dizzy, i.e. the 123, which gave us the opportunity to do a technical video on fitting the 123 to this car, and of course includes the important step of deleting the coil with ballast resistor and putting in a standard coil in its place. So did that and fired it up beautifully. We've been putting some miles on it, could not make it misbehave. I came back from fetching another car from MOT the other day, and it stopped dead on me. I had a look at the petrol, and what came out of the tank was kind of like a milky cup of tea. That sort of opaqueness and a load of debris dumped out first of all. So we've emptied the tank, we've put in a new strainer. Thankfully all the 164s had a fuel strainer in the fuel tank, and I suspect that's probably solved it now. What else did we do on this? Oh, alternator. Yeah. At the same time, we put on new belts, the power assisted steering and the fan belt, and put in a brand new alternator on it because he had charging problems. And to be honest, if you're not hung up on absolute originality of keeping the original 55 amp alternator and its separate control box, they are actually quite difficult to fault find. To identify whether it's the control box or the alternator that's actually faulty, and it's usually the control box, to be honest. So we opt, where we can, to put in the modern alternator which has onboard regulator because it's just so simple and so reliable. So that went in, and we just need to put some miles on this and just check that there's no foibles for when Steve gets his car back. So that's that. And then we got the 142E, came back from an MOT check. Really, we were just trying to identify what the fails on bodywork were, which were pretty much what I predicted. And it had nothing else apart from a rear brake binding, which I'm pretty sure is not the calipers, because I checked the calipers returning nicely. It's probably the handbrake. So we'll just go back in and check that handbrake. Well, that's it. That was our week. Next week, what have we got? Well, okay, so at the end of next week, we have an Amazon coming in for a full service, and hopefully early in the week, because I believe they will be making it tomorrow, will be our copper gasket for the 142. And that means I can get the 142 back on the road very early next week. There's a couple of other tasks I need to do. One is putting a centiminute rally timer into Gareth's car so that I don't have to use a separate stopwatch. And Amy has requested in her 142 rally car that they have a driver's display of the trip meter. So we'll put that in as well. So I think next week it's going to be kind of a rally week. Gareth's car, final bits before the rally of the tests, and Amy's car, getting it mobile again so that we can give it a proper shakedown in time for the Land's End to John O'Groats rally in December. That is it for this week. Yes, I'm looking forward to a weekend at home at last. It's been a while since I've had a weekend at home, so I'm rather looking forward to that. Thank you.